The inn is full, not only here, every service provider, the inn is full.
Searching for a place to call home, the key change that will help homeless in San Diego.
They will never forget Aaron. The picture of who he was before and seeing him in a wheelchair.
Tackling the opioid crisis in San Diego and the family who is trying to save young people from addiction.
She kind of accepted me for the bum that I was. She saved my life.
Healing from war thanks to a love story. The support network of veterans after the war ends. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. No backing out now. A new law will force SeaWorld to follow through with its plan to end killer whale breeding programs. SeaWorld had huge success with the popular Shamu Orca show, but after backlash and a dip in profits following a critical documentary, the company announced it's no longer breeding orcas and would stop making the whales do tricks. Today, Governor Jerry Brown signed a bill outlawing orca breeding and confinement programs. The law makes exceptions for scientific research and rehabilitation. The San Diego-based for-profit college Bridgepoint Education has agreed to refund $23.5 million in student loans. KPBS education reporter Megan Burke says the settlement stems from complaints Bridgepoint misled students into borrowing their student loans from the company.
The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau alleges Bridgepoint convinced students to take out private in-house student loans by saying they could be paid off for as little as $25 a month. In many cases, the bills were much higher. A spokesperson for the company did not return a request for comment. The company's CEO denied wrongdoing in a statement sent to the San Diego Union Tribune. Under the settlement, Bridgepoint will refund nearly $5 million in loan payments and cancel another $18.5 million in outstanding debt. Unlike ITT Technical Institute, which abruptly closed its doors last week, Bridgepoint can still accept federal financial aid and is not expected to close. Bridgepoint runs Ashford University and University of the Rockies. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump wants a 5-week delay in the trial over whether his namesake university defrauded customers. Trump lead attorney has asked a federal judge in San Diego to move the trial from late November to early January. He says he has a scheduling conflict. Both dates fall between the presidential election and inauguration. Democratic congressional candidate Doug Applegate is responding to reports that his ex-wife sought a protective order or protective orders against him during their divorce. The retired Marine colonel is locked in a tight race with Republican Darrell Issa. Today, Politico reported that a judge issued a temporary restraining order against Applegate in both 2002 and 2004. Applegate told Politico that the charges were never proven. He also put out a statement calling the release of his divorce proceedings a politically motivated attack by ISIS campaign. A former California lawmaker has been sentenced to a year in prison for helping his brother, then state senator, hide bribes he got for supporting legislation. The sentence requires former Assemblyman Thomas Calderon to split the term between a federal prison and his home. He laundered money for ex-state Senator Ron Calderon, who accepted bribes from an undercover FBI agent in exchange for supporting tax credits for the film industry. Southern California Gas has reached a $4 million settlement in connection with the Elisa Canyon gas leak. The Los Angeles County District Office says the settlement resolves criminal charges. The company was accused of failing to immediately report the leak that began in October and was capped in February. The company also agreed to install infrared methane monitoring system and employees to operate it. The San Diego County Fire Authority has improved its capabilities, and that could lead to significant savings for residents in unincorporated communities. The county reports that an independent agency rates them in the top 10 nationally for fighting structural fires. The new assessment could lead to lower fire insurance rates for property owners. The Fire Authority has been working to improve service since the devastating wildfires of 2003 and 2007. More than 200 homeless people in downtown San Diego could soon have a key to their own front door. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy tells us St. Vincent de Paul Villages is turning some of its traditional transitional units into permanent housing.
Along the outskirts of downtown San Diego, lines of tents, some barely a foot apart, house hundreds of men, women, and children with nowhere else to go.
The inn is full, not only here, every service provider, the inn is full.
Deacon Jim Vargas is president and CEO of Father Joe's Villages, where the waiting list for a bed can be months long. The Homeless Services Organization is working to help more people by transitioning 225 of its units into permanent homes. The move is part of the city's long-term vision to end homelessness for good.
It's going to be a combination of new homeless people who have not been with us and those who are with us, and they will be transitioning from other programs into the permanent units.
Vargas says many of the permanent units will be located at the Toussaint Center on Ash Street in downtown. The facility currently provides housing for young teens, but it will soon serve adults ages 18 to 24. The teens will be placed into other programs or reunited with their families. Vargas says the permanent housing units won't make much of a dent in the rising street population.
There are 5,000 men, women, children who are on the streets each and every single night. So this is a step in the right direction.
Vargas says the project is being funded by the city, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and donations. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
We're here outside of San Diego County's medical examiner's office with iNews Source reporter Leo Castaneda to talk about opioid addiction here in San Diego County. You did extensive research. What did you find?
We found that this has been a problem that has been growing over the last 9-10 years. All throughout San Diego County, it's hit virtually every corner of the county. Last year there were 262 deaths, many of them from prescription pills, and also we're seeing a lot of people switching over from pills to illicit heroin.
And in addition to the numbers, you touched on some personal stories. Tell me about that.
That's right. I talked to Sherry Rubin. She's the founder and director of the Hope Together Foundation, and she first got involved with this issue through her son. He was a football player at Pirate High School, very healthy kid, and here's her story.
He had played football ever since he was 7, so through Pop Warner and then straight into middle school and high school, he played football. He wasn't that kid that the coaches always put in, so he worked hard to gain his position on the field, and it was really important to him.
Aaron started taking Vicodin in high school. In college, he also picked up Oxycontin, a powerful opioid painkiller. Then, at 23 years old, he overdosed.
So he had a heart attack, and then it shut down the rest of his body and its organs, so there was no oxygen going to his brain. So he suffered 2 strokes, front and back, both sides of his brain. He was in a coma for over a month and on life support, and we started planning his funeral, but then he started opening his eyes.
Today, the Rubins visit schools, sharing their story. For Sherry, Aaron is the one that makes a difference.
I could go in and say 1,000 words, and they're not going to listen to me. They're not going to remember me, but they will never forget Aaron. The picture of who he was before and seeing him in a wheelchair, how he is now. So,
their goal is to face the stigma of addiction and educate young people about the dangers of opioids, like prescription pills.
It's too late for my son. It's too late for my family. But it's not too late for others. And so that's why we do what we do. Not for us. For all of those families that don't think it will happen to them. We're trying to make that come true.
So as we just saw, addiction to painkillers, abuse of painkillers can devastate families and ultimately lead to death. What are you seeing as far as the deaths related to this issue locally?
We're seeing that a lot of the people who are, dying from this addiction, a lot of them are men, a lot of them are white, especially in these communities that were, outside of the traditional hotspots. And then a lot of them are young. The bulk of the individuals dying are older, and that has to do with pre-existing conditions like heart problems or liver problems. But when we look at people who visited emergency rooms like Aaron did and survived related to opioids, half of them are people in their 20s and 30s. So we're seeing a lot of young people becoming addicted to painkillers and heroin.
And you mentioned hotspots, which you had said were like downtown areas, City Heights areas, and now it's spreading, the problem is spreading. But how big of an issue is this in San Diego's more rural communities, suburbs?
It's a lot of times it's not huge numbers, but it's, communities that had seen maybe 1 or 2 opioid deaths 10 years ago are now seeing 4 or 5 in any given year. For example, Rancho Penasquitos had 0 deaths from heroin between 2000 and 2008. Since 2009, they've had 6. So again, not huge numbers, but these are communities that were, not used to seeing heroin in their homes.
Thank you so much, Leah.
Thank you.
A breakthrough study from UC Davis may help speed up autism research. Scientists are reviewing the DNA of families with children with autism. They need at least 50,000 people to volunteer. UC San Diego is also teaming up in this effort. This is the largest study to look at a possible genetic cause for autism.
Well, we really hope that if we understand more about the genetic causes of autism, that we can develop treatments that will prevent autism in the future, and certainly for people that are affected, maybe more personalized treatments that are really tailored to what the specific causes are of their autism.
The study will last 3 years. It has 9,000 volunteers so far. UC San Diego once again makes the top 10 on a list released today, ranking America's best colleges. The rankings were compiled by U.S. News and World Report. UCSD came in 10th among best public schools, while SDSU ranked 47th. USD also made the list. It's 86 on the list of overall best colleges, and it's the youngest private university to top the rankings. San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer is laying out the groundwork for a closer partnership with the Jacob Center. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen explains how this may help one southeastern San Diego neighborhood.
The mayor on Tuesday signed a memorandum of understanding with the Jacob Center for Neighborhood Innovation. It's not so much a binding commitment as it is a vision, a public-private partnership to enhance the quality of life in the historically neglected Encanto neighborhood.
For too long, the residents of southeastern San Diego had felt that their city wasn't paying attention to the neighborhood needs. Today's agreement means that revitalizing southeastern San Diego is one of our city's top priorities.
The document signed by the two parties suggests a handful of options for more formal cooperation, things like reimbursements for development fees and exploring the creation of a business incentive fund. Jacob Center President and CEO Reginald Jones says it will formalize a collaboration that's already in motion.
No doubt, our public philanthropic partnership will influence other investment as well, government and private. It is truly a tool that can advance southeastern San Diego, making it a stronger part in the San Diego region.
The Jacob Center is in the midst of a major shift in funding. The Family Foundation, that had provided nearly all the center's revenue, is winding down its financial support. The center has to greatly expand its donor base to fill the gap. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Cool autumn weather continues in San Diego, but Shanae Shocker says we might see a slight warming trend later this week. She has that in tonight's KPBS weather report.
Over the past 6 hours off the coast of Baja California, Orlean, that was once a hurricane, has weakened quite a bit. Now, we're not going to see too many impacts of Orlean here, other than over the next 24 hours. There could be some rough surf along that Pacific coast of Baja California. But over Southern California, the last 6 hours, it's been pretty clear. Off to our north, maybe a couple of spotty showers and thunderstorms near Nevada. But here, it's been beautiful. Looking ahead into tonight, 64 degrees for your low, increasing cloud cover. That's pretty normal for this time of year as well. It's going to start to dissipate throughout the morning tomorrow. But tonight for the rest of the region, down in Ramona, 46 degrees for the low. It's definitely getting into that fall weather where we can put on some jackets, maybe even go outside and enjoy a campfire. Take a look inside the interior. Borrego Springs at 55, Mecca 60 degrees, and 36 degrees in Mount Laguna. Definitely chilly out there. Here's your setup for Wednesday. We'll continue to have comfortable weather as winds from the north usher in some pleasant temperatures. The low pressure system off to our east is bringing some showers in and thunderstorms into the Four Corners region. But for us, it is going to be absolutely beautiful. Later in the week, temperatures will warm just a little bit, especially in Southern California. We'll see some temperatures rise up to maybe even 5 to 10 degrees. Take a look at your 5-day outlook for the coast. Starting on Wednesday, 73 degrees. Those temperatures continue into Thursday. Come Friday, they drop just a little bit into 71. But by Sunday, the end of the weekend, those temperatures still nice and comfortable, but in the mid-70s. As we head inland, those temperatures are warmer. They're in the upper 70s to low 80s throughout the end of this week. But take a look what's happening for your Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, those temperatures sitting at 82, and then they jump to the upper 80s. Definitely getting warmer. Overnight lows, though, staying pretty similar around the mid-50s. Here's your 5-day outlook for the mountain forecast. Cooler temperatures out here. 70 degrees for your Wednesday. They climb just a bit through Saturday, and Sunday they will reach into the 80s. Your overnight lows on Friday and Saturday into the 30s. So definitely be prepared for cooler weather as well. Here's your desert outlook. We're starting in the low 90s. Out here under sunny skies. Those temperatures do return to the triple digits by the weekend, though, so it's going to be very sunny and very warm. I'm Shanae Shocker, KPBS News.
A new University of San Diego photo exhibit examines farm workers' movement during the time of Cesar Chavez. KPBS Frontiers reporter Jean Guerrero says some of these images have never been released before now.
The photographer is Carlos Legarete, a friend of Cesar Chavez who worked as his assistant during the farm worker movement.
These have basically been in a shoebox for 43 years, so it's kind of bringing them out and baptizing them.
Legarete says he became Chavez's photographer because so many people wanted their pictures taken with the civil rights leader. Chavez lent him his own Nikon. The photos provide an insider's look at the farm workers movement in San Diego and other cities. One photo shows 2 German shepherds who provided protection to Chavez and his crew from sometimes violent opponents.
And this is boycott, this is huelga.
Huelga means strike in Spanish. Legarete says he'd bring the dogs out whenever opponents at a strike came too close. The exhibit also features more iconic images, such as this one of Chavez and his wife, Helen, dancing on her 50th birthday.
Helen's always left out. And Helen's the glue. Or was the glue to the motion.
The exhibit comes at a momentous time for farm workers in California. Governor Jerry Brown has just signed a bill to give farm workers overtime pay for the first time in the state.
We were the underdogs, but we prevailed.
His baseball cap says Los de Abajo, the underdogs. The exhibit will run through November 18th at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
The United States military spending and its relationship with its allies has been a hot topic this election season. American Empire is a documentary that shows how historical events have shaped the way the U.S. handles foreign conflicts to this day.
Right off the bat, there is the discussion about World War II and the implications, the long-lasting implications and the international system that it helped create. Can you talk to me about the significance of that war and how the U.S. handles foreign conflicts to this day?
World War II was probably the most significant event in U.S. foreign policy, in the development of foreign policy. Prior to World War II, the overarching theme of U.S. foreign policy was known as Washington's Great Rule, from George Washington. And for 150 years, U.S. foreign policy was based on the concept of being a neutral nation politically, being a neutral nation militarily, and doing business with other countries but not getting involved in their conflicts. We did get involved in conflicts. We were obviously involved in the Spanish-American War, World War I, but those conflicts were for our own interests, where our own interests were directly affected. Post-World War II was the first time the U.S. actually got involved in a permanent military alliance, which is NATO. And at the time, the world was a very different place than it is today. It was bombed out. Europe was almost completely destroyed by the war. It effectively had no defenses against a aggressive Soviet army that was not only armed but trained and marching forward. And so the U.S. was really in a very unique place where it was called upon to help defend Europe from the Soviet threat. And as a result of that, the Truman Doctrine came into effect to replace Washington's Great Rule. And that was the first time that U.S. foreign policy was based on the protection of non-U.S. Citizens and the protection of minorities in countries that were being oppressed by outside forces. It was revolutionary in terms of how we saw our role in the world. So everything changed at the end of World War II.
So what are the possible implications of scaling back? And is there another country that could step up and fill that void if the U.S. did scale back?
There certainly are countries that can help us umpire the world's security. What we have to do, though, is be comfortable with that. For one example I could use is that as a result of the refugee crisis in Europe, which many feel was caused by our wars that we started there, but Europe is dealing with it. Europe has to deal with the repercussions of that. One of the things that's happened is the Italian Navy has started to expand. They've started to invest more in naval resources to defend their shorelines, but also to deal with the refugee crisis. So do we see that as go Italy? You know, thank you, Italy, for building your own fire hydrant, for starting to build your own fire hydrant, and we'll support you? Or do we say that that represents weakness on our part, that we should be the ones there defending Italy? Should China deal with North Korea, or should we deal with North Korea? And are we comfortable with that? China shares a border with North Korea. Can we feel comfortable that China might have the same interests that we do in some areas about North Korea? Can we feel comfortable with Russia negotiating a peace in Syria? So there are people that want to play the role or have their own interests that they want to protect, and we need to rethink who we are, and that we need to accommodate some of those countries and not alienate them.
You can watch American Umpire tonight on KPBS. That starts at 9 o'clock.
I'm Gwen Eichel on the next News Hour. Our Rethinking College series continues. Why Latino men are underrepresented in universities and what can be done to change that. Tuesday on the PBS News Hour.
The Vietnam War left one Marine broken, isolated, and full of rage. He says his wife saved his life. In tonight's ITVS report, filmmakers Tony Gerber and Lynn Nottage show us how soldiers can support one another after they come off the battlefield.
I got some food and water here. You guys want it? I give food all throughout the week, in a month, maybe 300 times. Anything from a sandwich and a bottle of water to a box of food. When I got out of the service, I hated myself, I hated everyone. Would beg the police to shoot me. But then I met Liz. She was still in the Army. She kind of accepted me for the bum that I was. She saved my life, you know.
I
joined the service when I was 18 years old, and I ended up doing 23 years and retiring. When you get out of the military, it's hard transitioning back into civilian life.
Look at that. Look at that.
I figure this is Doug's passion. He's got a big heart. He just wants to help veterans and homeless.
I'm calling Rob to see if he's going to be around to get rid of some of this meat. A lot of times he won't answer the phone. He's paranoid. Here, first of all, take this.
I served in both Iraq and Afghanistan. When I got out, I had 2 back surgeries, hospitalizations for PTSD, depression. It gets to the point where, for some reason, you just don't feel all right. You don't feel like living, I guess.
Here.
Rob called on a Thursday afternoon and he said to Doug, "Man, I feel like committing suicide." And Doug's like, "No way, come on over to my house tomorrow and I'm going to put you to work. I go to the food bank, you can help me deliver food."
All right, fill up your bag, all right?
We've been to 2 separate wars. Mine was in the desert, his was in the jungle.
All right, Rob, you take it easy,
Man,
okay?
I appreciate it.
We'll see you, all right?
Okay. Bye, Doug. We're not alone when we're fighting this battle when we come home.
All veterans have a bond. We all know what's happening inside, our struggles.
This ITVS report was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening.